Welcome back. I'm talking to Andrew Johnson about 9/11, and before the break I aired for the first time on television my analysis of Flight 175, where I compared it to a 3D model and showed conclusively that all of the videos of this alleged Flight 175, they do match.
Right.
Can you go along with that, Andrew? I mean,
you can see there's obviously some slight discrepancies in some of them, but overall, because of the number that you've put together there, I think you've got, was it 30, 29, was it 28?
Yeah,
or something?
26 clips.
26, yeah. And you can see that this plane does follow the radar path as you laid out in the video very clearly. So I would tend to agree that the idea that simply, we've got plain images put into the video that's not the whole that's not the whole story.
Yeah, we can clearly see from two of the amateur clips, the impact videos, that they're not real impacts. So something else has to be going on. And we've discussed it's either one of two things. Either the videos have been faked, which is what Simon Shack proposes in his film September Clues, or something else, which is what I've suggested in my film. Now, as I said in part one, Simon Shack's film was the thing that inspired me to question the video evidence. But now that I've examined it in a lot more detail, I don't agree with the fundamental or main theory that Simon Shack puts forward, which is that the planes that we saw were fake video. I do not agree with that now. Now, we can just go through his film, some of the central points in his film, Andrew. The first thing that or one of the things that he points out is that the screen fades to black. In some of the major network, their output, they faded the screen to black shortly after the alleged second impact. Now, that doesn't mean that what we saw was computer
generated. No, it doesn't.
Or fake video. They may have been trying to disguise their cartoon physics of a holographic impact.
Right, and you could also argue, for example, that they were shocked by what they saw and they didn't want people to see it just because it was shocking. So they faded it for that reason, possibly. It sounds strange, but maybe it's correct.
Yeah, and another thing that he points out is that there's a 17-second delay from what actually happened to what was seen on TV. Now, that may well be true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that video fakery was used. It might mean that, that would give someone putting out the video enough time to either discard or retain a particular clip. So if it doesn't look right, maybe they were going to censor it, but it doesn't prove video fakery. Another thing I'd like to bring to light is what Shack refers to as the matrix shot, where he has 5 different networks of the towers, and he claims that it's actually the same shot which is being reused, which proves that the plane was inserted, because in this clip, for example, the alleged plane comes down from above. This one, it comes from the side. Yet Shack is claiming that these are the same camera angle, and my video shows that they're not the same camera angle, and that my video shows that every single camera angle of the alleged second impact does match the
path.
The path.
Yeah.
So, and this is another image here. Now, the other thing that Shack pointed out was what he terms the nose out clip, where the plane's nose seems to come out the other side of the building in the second tower. And I've done the same analysis that Simon Shack has. This image here shows this is 4 frames before the plane is seen to go in, and this is 2 frames here of what seems to be the plane's nose coming out. Now, this was Shack's basic analysis of comparing the nose out with the nose going in, and he's saying from this that it has to have been video fakery, because there's no way a plane's nose can go right the way through a building, which is what he's saying is seen on video. But I've done the same analysis, and okay, it does look a little bit like a plane's nose, but it's nowhere near as convincing as Shack's. So,
it looks like he's massaged that. It's not totally false.
I think he's massaged it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that he suggests is that he compares various plane paths, where some plane paths appear to be horizontal and other ones seem to be coming down a very steep angle. And he concludes that they can't possibly be the same. Well, my video proves that they are the same.
Right.
So, and we can go on with some of the things which Shack points out. For example, he says that there are various noises and explosions being added to certain clips. That may well be true, but again, it doesn't prove video fakery. And like you can hear a woman screaming, and the same woman appears to scream on more than one clip. Again, they may have added those for dramatic effect, but it doesn't prove video fakery. He also goes into various witnesses, and he casts doubt over their accounts and about how the fact that you had news executives seemingly queuing up to give their account of a coherent version of what happened. Again, that could all be true, but it doesn't prove video fakery. So, as I say, the central hypothesis of September clues, in my opinion, is incorrect. I don't believe video fakery was used, but I do believe a fake plane was used.
Right, and again, what we're looking at here is, the way that disinformation works is they'll give you 90% of the truth, and then slip in the 10% of the falsehood. And what I've discovered with this thing about the thermite theory and all of that is that yes, they disagree with the official story, and they'll tell you that planes and jet fuel, doesn't explain how the buildings came down, and that part is true. And as you've gone through the list there, the things that Simon Shack points out are valid, but his explanation for them isn't necessarily the correct one. And it may be that he is indeed put together that whole set of an explanation to deliberately mislead you from the final correct explanation, which is what is proposed in your film, or something like what is proposed in your film.
Now, you've had correspondence with Simon Shack, and indeed, after I brought out my ball analysis, he was very keen to talk to me on Skype, and I did speak to him. And he seemed keen to kind of get me on board, if you like, with his computer graphic theory, which I was kind of, that's what I was suggesting in my initial analysis. I don't think that now. The reason why I don't think that is because there are too many amateur clips to have inserted planes in all of those different.
Right.
But I do agree that the impacts are impossible.
That's right. I mean, again, as you showed in the film, that's one of the key points. The impacts themselves are one of the key factors which show you it couldn't have been a standard Boeing jet that did the damage, as you put in your film very clearly. And that's one of the key factors to keep in mind, because what you're then looking at, and this is where it ties in with Dr. Wood's research, at least up to a point, is how the holes in the buildings were made. And that's also a topic worthy of study.
Well, let's just mention that, Andrew, because in the film I did say that the magnetometer data suggests that a directed energy weapon was used to create the wing-shaped holes in the buildings.
Right.
Can you expand on that?
Right. Well, that's another thing which people don't really want to talk about. That's not addressed in September Clues at all anywhere. And we've got a number of other supporting pieces of evidence, like, for example, Edna Sintron, who's one of the people that was standing in the hole. I think we may have mentioned her before. And she's holding onto this steel beam literally within an hour of when the hole came, and that immediately before the building came, it was turned to dust, and so that means it can't have been hot, oh no, you're not particularly hot. So that's got to be explained. So you've got several anomalies like that which you really need to look at closely, and they're not really addressed in things like September Clues.
Now, as I said, when I first watched September Clues, I mean, it was brought out in 2007.
Correct. That was the original.
Right. I don't think I'd seen it until probably the beginning of 2010, and then I formed my own theory. Now, what can we say about it then, Andrew? Because having looked in more detail myself into my own analysis, I don't agree with the conclusions of that film. So you have done a little bit of, or you've had communication with Simon Shack.
Right, I have, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Simon Shack and
certainly
what you think his motives are?
Well, I mean, my dealings with him really sort of somewhat minor, but I think nevertheless significant, because I contacted him, I think it was 2008, because he'd asked for some web space to be provided so that he could store his videos on a real website, not on YouTube, or he was actually using a live video, which was a video sharing service, a bit like YouTube, but it was ad laden, not very good, but a bit slow to access and so on. And so I contacted him through this forum and said, oh yeah, I can give you some web space, because I happen to have some that have become available. and I offered it to him for free, and I even bought him a domain name, septclues.com, and I sent him those details, and he sent him an FTP login and so on, and away he went, and he posted those videos to that web space.
So you were supporting his work at that time.
Right,
you were handing out videos, DVDs of his film.
Yeah, I still am, and for the reasons that it raises legitimate questions about the video record and what it actually means, and that's still true. However, having you done your analysis, I'm now going to have to reevaluate all of that based on what you've discovered and my own dealings with Simon Shack. For example, he never thanked me when I offered him this web space, and then when it ran out a year later, he simply wrote me an email saying, "Oh, the web space is now no longer accessible." And by that time, I knew that what he was trying to do was not entirely, how can I put it? He wasn't wanting to follow the different threads of truth wherever they led. For example, I tried to ask him to do an interview, a podcast about Dr. Judy Wood's research. Never even replied. I asked him that, wasn't interested in doing it. Now, to me, somebody who's going to that sort of length, producing an hour-and-a-half long film about video fakery and the record of 9/11, I would have thought they would have had some interest in discussing how the buildings were destroyed.
Basically, Shack states that because all of the videos he claims were completely fabricated, everything that we saw was fabricated either through computer animation or using layer masks, etc., of previous clips and clipping them together, that means that no scientific analysis which follows by using the videos is valid.
Right. I mean, he basically, when we start to have a conversation over Skype, and this was we didn't talk by voice, we talked by chat, text chat. These are some of the points that he came out. He started to claim, I could accept the idea of video fakery. I could accept, for example, if you look at the Westcam system, they can insert video artifacts into that. That's part of the way it's meant to operate. I can accept that. So I was open to the idea of video fakery. But when he was then extending that to say, well, all the video, even the destruction of the towers, let alone the plane,
the smoke,
even the smoke was fake. The towers turning to dust, that was fake. That was essentially his position, which I couldn't accept. And I, for example, then asked him during this Skype chat, and I've published this in an article. And when this is, when as you watch this program, you can go onto my website, checktheevidence.com, and you can see the article about Simon Shack and the correspondence I had with him and so on. And he claims that all these videos are fake, and therefore any scientific research based on video evidence is unreliable.
So let me ask the question, Andrew, then. Does Simon Shack, you think, genuinely believe that all of the video was faked and that was part of the 9/11 conspiracy? Or does he know that the video wasn't faked and he's trying to fool us all because he's part of Intel?
Well, my opinion, based on the correspondence, but I can't prove this, is that he is trying, like a good disinformation will give you 90% of the truth, and then put in the 10% to keep you away from the important stuff. And it is now my conclusion, based on both what I've considered and what you put together and what our interactions with him, that he is trying to lead people away from the non-video fakery evidence. In other words, something like some type of holographic technology, something like that, which was used to project these images of planes. That's what he's trying to lead people away from. That I can't prove that, but that's what it looks like, because he believes, he said this to me. I said to him, well, how did the towers turn to dust, Simon? Are the towers still there, or did they indeed turn to dust? And he said, and I did say to him, I went to New York in 2000. I filmed the towers not being there with my own camera. I know they're not there, because I've been there, and I filmed them not being there. And but he said he wanted to believe that they were taken down by controlled demolition. Yeah. So in other words, he'd gone to belief for the controlled demolition. He'd gone to belief. He didn't matter about the evidence. So why has he put in this evidential film called September Clues together, but then in the next breath ignoring the evidence of the destruction.
I mean, if that's what it is, a disinformation film, okay, and I'm not saying it is or not, I think it might be. When I watched that 2 years ago, that thought never came into my head,
Right.
because that film, it's completely pulling apart the official line, and it's kind of saying they're lying to us. They're lying to us. Look at what they've done with this video. Look at this witness. Look at the nose out. And you think, yeah, this guy's trying to find the truth of what's going on. So it didn't come into my head that this was disinformation, if that's what it is.
You know,
but only having spent months, and that's how long it's taken me,
yes,
months to do this 3D analysis, do I think, hang on, no, there's something not right here.
And I think, again, you know, this came up with another question that we had. That if you take the film 9/11 Mysteries, which was made by Sophia Smallstorm or Sophia Shafquat, she uses two names, that was made a few years ago, and somebody said to me, anybody who made that film and went to the length of making that film, at the end of it, they could not possibly conclude that the buildings were brought down with controlled demolition. And yet, that's what she's put in the film.
Right.
And I think the same might be argued for September Clues. If you'd gone to the trouble of producing a film like September Clues, which again probably took several months, in theory, you wouldn't come to the conclusion that it was just video fakery.
I mean, he's obviously a very skilled filmmaker.
Yes.
Watch his film, and you said his father has a connection to the UN. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe his father. If you go and look, his real name is not Shaq. His real name is Simon Heighton, and he lives in Rome, but I think he's of Norwegian descent. And you know, he invited me to go over to Rome for his 10-year celebration of 9/11. I mean, why would you want to celebrate something like that? That was in 2011. He invited me to go and post on his September Clues forum, where he's posted supposed YouTube messages from Dr. Judy Wood from a YouTube channel she supposedly had. She apparently sent him this message full of profanity and threatened to sue him, but he didn't say what she was going to sue him for. So it appears that somebody has started a smear campaign against Dr. Judy Wood, and Simon Shaq is happy to promote this, and this is what I've partly written about in the article, which is very peculiar when he's supposedly wanting to get to the truth of what happened, and he accuses Dr. Judy Wood of only using video evidence to draw her conclusions, which of course is untrue, because she's used seismic data, she's used physical data from the site, weather data, she's used witness testimony, she's used audio evidence, she's used other documentary evidence. So for Simon Shaq to ignore all of that, and then in other words, he's trying to use the September Clues research to say that the directed energy weapons research is not reliable.
Right. Now, there might be people sitting at home, Andrew, saying, well, why would they need to do that? Why would they need to put out all of this fake video thing, and you think it's just getting people, nudging them off the truth, basically.
Right.
Because if someone works out exactly how 9/11 was done and can prove it, then the perpetrators they can possibly then be brought to justice.
Right. Well, are you getting closer to who other perpetrators might be? You know, we do have to realise that 9/11 was a very sophisticated technical operation, and that we can also, got to understand that they planned the cover-up very well.
Yeah.
So, that we've got to bear that in mind. And I think, a lot of what the base of the cover-up is revealing the technology. Because we've now revealed to the world that the energy weapon technology is real. It's not a theory, despite how many times you'll hear Jim Fetzer or other people say this. It is not a theory. The energy weapon technology is real, and we know the basic idea behind it.
And it's spelled out in this book.
Absolutely. And it's my conclusion that what you've produced is one of the doorways to looking at some other technology that was employed, for example, in actually, because the thing we haven't discussed is witnesses did actually see something that looked like planes. And you cannot explain that with video fakery. When the witnesses are describing that they saw something like a plane in the sky, but then... I
mean, this was the penny that dropped with me when I saw the RADES military data, and it wasn't in the right place. It's 1,400 feet or more to the side, and I'm thinking, well, have I got it wrong? And I must have checked it 20 times
right.
to make sure. And the two paths that you see in my film, they are the genuine 2 official radar paths, and
Yeah.
one of them is not right.
Yeah.
So if that's an object, then it wasn't seen.
Yep.
And I'm going to bring in at this point, I have had an email from someone who said that they saw a spherical object above their apartment, about the size of a small car, he said, in between the time when the 2 alleged strikes occurred. So after the first tower had been struck, or seemingly been struck, he saw this drone above his apartment, and he lived just south of the towers in New York. Now, when Andrew and I were discussing this, we thought, well, hang on, maybe it's the same drone that's projected that image of the first plane, and then it's just gone round and it's done the next one. So
Right.
it's the same. So it's actually an image of the same plane for the first tower and the second tower. And then Andrew said it's had time to fly to the Pentagon as well.
Yeah, well, potentially it has, because if you look at the timescales and the speed it was flying at, it did have enough time to fly the 250
Whatever it was.
miles. Yeah,
Whatever it was.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, again, we're speculating on that part of it. But again, you know, what's brought out in September Clues at one point is the way this plane apparently appears just in the middle of its image.
Uh-huh.
So again, if this was a holographically projected image, maybe the projection was switched on at a certain point. That doesn't necessarily prove video fakery. If they've got the ability to switch this image on and off, then who knows?
And one other point about, you know, the ball clip, the NBC clip, where it comes down, whatever the object is, whether it's a fake image or what have you, it comes down from the sky. Perhaps that was the backdrop for that image was the water and the New York skyline, whereas most of the others, the backdrop was clear sky. So maybe, and this is pure speculation, I'm just thinking aloud here, maybe the projection system works better with a clear backdrop, perhaps,
Right.
which is why the ball clip, which is why it didn't look as convincing as the others, perhaps.
Again, that's a possibility. And also, you know, people have talked about the beautiful clear blue skies on 9/11, totally clear. And we know about the hurricane and how that weather system seems to have been steered and manipulated. Was again that those blue skies necessary for this, you know, this illusion to be created? Again, we can't necessarily connect the two, but again, it's just something that we can suggest as a possibility.
All right then, Andrew. Well, you've written a book as well, 9/11 Finding the Truth, which we discussed in detail it was program number 85. And just to remind you that the 2 interviews that I did with Dr. Judy Wood are programs 76 and 78, which you can, if you go to richplanet.net, click on Richplanet TV, and interview 76 and 78, and 85 is Andrew's other interview. So just tell us where people can get your book, Andrew.
Well, the book we can get it through lulu.com. You can also download it as a PDF from my website. There's links on my website. You'll find all the information on that. I've made a Kindle version, an Amazon Kindle version. You can get it from the iBook store as well. If you're one of these lucky people with a new iPad, you can download it from there for a couple of pounds or something. But it's free from my website as well.
All right, Andrew. Well, thanks very much indeed. And it just remains for me to say, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.